All right, everybody. My name's Samuel Steiner. And let's talk about de facto Somaliland. I know it's a topic you've been waiting for. So Somaliland is actually such an interesting topic. Why I picked it is mainly because of the deal they made with Ethiopia for port access in 2023. And this caused a lot of tensions in Africa. You see, Somaliland over here. This is Somalia down here, Puntland. Uh, Semi-autonomous state over there. And Somalia's got this port that's very important. Ethiopia's got no ports. They really want one. They started a deal, pissed off Somalia. Now all of the other people who are angry with Ethiopia are trying to pile on. It's a whole mess. It's gotten worse. But that's really where I got curious about Somaliland. I saw this opportunity for this paper and I was quite interested in it. But Somaliland has a lot of other interesting things about it too. Um, Most about it is that they are a quiet success, especially compared to Somalia, which has been a mess for a long time. Whereas Somalia has been struggling with a variety of issues and it's one of the poorest countries in the world. Somaliland is relatively better, and they've had some serious successes. They've have complete control or relatively complete control over their land, despite disputes with Puntland. They have democratic transitions. They provide service to their people. And despite not receiving any international recognition or foreign aid, they have been quite a success. So the timeline for them goes like this. So they were ruled by the English from the 80s, 1880s. And then in the 1960s, 1960 exactly, when they received independence, they joined with their southern brethren, the former Italian colony, Somalia. So they were in that for a while. They received a lot of abuse from the Siad Barre regime. And then when his regime was toppled in 1991, they declared independence. Things didn't go straight from there. From 1991 to 97, they had huge internal conflict, a civil war. Basically, just the internal groups fighting over power, influence, representation, and politics in general. But without international influence, things went better than they often do, and it wasn't a prolonged conflict. They negotiated in 1997. They agreed to a constitution that still stands to this day. The political institutions are balanced in a way that works for people, and it's really been quite a success in especially democratic ways. So the big bane on Somaliland has been their lack of recognition. They have zero official recognitions. They're one kind of, or I guess they got two kind ofs, but they have recognition from Taiwan. I'm not really sure what that's worth. Um, and because of this, they've received no foreign aid. So, whereas a lot of countries in Africa receive huge portions of foreign aid, Somaliland receives none. Maybe they receive a little bit from various NGOs every once in a while, but that's about it. Um, and they're also uninvolved in international organizations. The closest thing they have to real recognition is this half recognition from Ethiopia that means just about nothing. So the recognition has been a big sticking point for Somaliland, who has been successful, done all the things they're supposed to do in an area where, they should be maybe getting more recognition than they are. And yet, since 1997, they have got nothing. And this recognition has really made a big impact, especially on how the country's developed. When we discuss nationalisms, a lot of people in Somaliland are very loyal to their regime, their leaders. But their nationalism isn't bent on ethnicity or a leader, a cult of personality. It's really formed by this lack of recognition. And so Somaliland is based on this desire and effort to get recognition. They've had strong democracy. They have solid institutions. They push for recognition. They have peace. They have strong security apparatus. And they're a de facto state. But despite this, they've gotten no recognition, and this has formed how Somalilanders view themselves, how they view their country, and in many ways how they act in their institutions. I would argue that their transitions have been a product of lack of recognition, even though it's had its hurt, its pain. Now, services are a main thing when we're talking about the sovereignty and control that a de facto state has. And the ability for Somaliland to provide services to its people has been relatively successful. They lack the money to provide a lot of things, but for the resources they have, especially when they're lacking foreign aid, they've been quite successful. And for security, which is the main concern in the region, they are they spend a good amount of money on it and have done a pretty successful job in securing areas for their people so they can actually live. Now, in terms of classical geopolitics, this is the newly elected president of Somaliland. Um, it's really formed around Somaliland's inability to garner recognition. This isn't just true for classical geopolitics, it's affected the people so deeply. But it's really been affected. It's really the main concept is their unofficial status. They do have some classical role for their importance as a Red Sea port location. The idea of their de facto statehood is important in how we view it through classical lenses. And then also Ethiopia. They're kind of this silent player in a big geopolitical turmoil that's going on right now. So when we look at it critically, especially through the ways where we're importantly talking about the role of colonialism and neocolonialism in how we view states, there are a couple points that need to be made. For one, Somaliland's identity is inseparably linked to its colonial borders, but they've had an interesting dynamic in this, and that um, they've been able to find peace inside of this, especially as a tribal unifier. Their political solutions, and ability to rise above poorly drawn borders has been successful. This hasn't been 100% successful. We don't have the time to get into that. And lastly, we want to talk about the impact of their international shutout. So all these important things that countries need to access nowadays from the international community, they're being pressured out of. And this has shaped the people, the state, everything about it. So Somaliland is quite an interesting example. It's a country formed by its lack of recognition. It's a country that has done everything to gain recognition, but still hasn't. And so its people, they live on, they continue down their path, and they continue success in a rough neighborhood.